Hi everyone, happy Friday. I know it's 2 minutes into Saturday, but welcome to another week in review. So, I get right into it. So, we're still in the midst of COVID. We're in year 3 and it's looking pretty crazy over here, but I'm going to go over these numbers. If you want to watch the replay on here, you can. I will put the video on YouTube as well, and then some clips on TikTok and Twitter. So here it is. According to the Johns Hopkins University Medicine website, there are 675,814,142 global confirmed cases of COVID-19 around the world. There are 6,876,083 deaths. With here at home in the United States of America, there are 103,586,598 confirmed cases of COVID here at home. And we have 1,121,693 fatalities. So just to repeat these numbers again, there are 675,814,142 confirmed cases of COVID-19 around the world. We have 6,876,083 fatalities around the world. There are 103,586,598 confirmed cases of COVID-19 here at home. And we have 1.1, almost 1.2 million people dead. In terms of vaccinations, there are 71% of Americans that are vaccinated, which is 29% are still not vaccinated. So keep in mind, the United States is 4.2% of the world's population, yet we have over 100 million cases of COVID and almost 1.2 million people dead. I mean, people are not listening. People are not masking no more. The president wants to do a plan where he, ends COVID. That's fine and dandy. But when people are still dying from this thing and people are still dealing with long COVID, I think those issues need to be addressed. And I understand the administration wants to dead this for maybe political reasons or maybe public health reasons, because when it's a public health crisis, it's an economic crisis, but this thing is still here. It has not gone away in our country. People are still on ventilators, still dying from this. Almost 1.2 million people. I mean, I think we need to think strategically and think hard that we need to still keep masking and keep our distance. That's my take. Maybe it's overbearing, but it's real things. Like COVID is real. It's killing people around the world. We almost have 7 million people dead from this around the world. Almost 1.2 million people at home in the United States of America. 4.2% of the world's population. That's nuts. So I urge people to mask up. And if you have not taken your vaccine, please take the vaccine. That's my word of advice to you. Enough on COVID. So George Santos, the representative of the New York 3rd Congressional District that's out of Long Island and represented some parts of Queens, is under investigation from the House Ethics Committee. And just to probably sum up on it, because I think there's some information on Mr. Santos himself, whatever aliases he goes by, he was Jewish, drag queen, I don't know, with the man. So according to CNN's Politics, the House Ethics Committee announced Thursday, which is yesterday, is officially moving forward with a probe into embattled Representative George Santos as the New York Republican faces mounting legal issues and calls to resign for extensively lying about his resume and biography. Keep in mind, he lied about working at Goldman Sachs. You can't be lying when you work at like a big investment company like that, because you know they're going to have record of you. He lied about where he got his education from and a whole host of things, right? They said the news release it's voted to set up an investigative subcommittee with authority to look into a number of issues, including whether Santos may have engaged in unlawful activity related to his 2022 congressional campaign. We all know that's true. Ask Vish. And according to the release, the investigative panel will have jurisdiction to determine whether Santos may have engaged in unlawful activity with respect to his 2022 campaign, failed to properly disclose required information on statements filed with the House, violated federal conflict of interest laws in connection with his role in a firm providing fiduciary services and or engaged in sexual misconduct towards an individual seeking employment in his congressional office. Oop. And there's a poll from the Siena College, which is upstate New York. Here, upstate, found that 66% of New Yorkers want him out, and including 58% of Republicans. So, here's my take on this. As a native New Yorker, born, raised, and currently still live in the city in particular, I asked the people of Long Island, 3rd Congressional District, where was your concerns when you cast your ballot for him? I mean, there was Zimmerman, whether you liked his politics or his campaign or not. I would rather have someone that actually had a resume that was very truthful versus somebody who was appealing or was the lesser of two evils. The fact that 58% of Republicans wanted him out, but y'all voted for him or decided to stay home, y'all ain't shit. Yes, I said that. I said all of that. So I'm going to say this one more time. It is interesting how 66% of New Yorkers wanted him out, including 58% of Republicans. But those 58% of Republicans, most out of Long Island's 3rd Congressional District, still voted for the man over Zimmerman. Whether you like Zimmerman's politics or not, Zimmerman was the better choice out of Santos, because you had those two. Because there was no Thomas Richard Suozzi, who was supposed to keep his position and was told not to run for governor because this is all on him, pretty much. If you really want to be real, Tom Suozzi is the reason why George Santos is in office. Because Tom Suozzi was told by Hakeem Jeffries and many other New York congressional Democrats to keep his job. He did not keep his job. He ignored it. He thought he had a better shot running against Kathy Hochul, which he got blown out of the water. He was 3rd place. He was 12% of that vote. Only 12% of support. So Tom Suozzi is part of the reason why there's a George Santos. So you Republicans that voted for George Santos, y'all can cry me a river and shut the hell up, because you should have never voted for him. You should have voted for Zimmerman. So all I'm saying, I don't want to hear the bullshit. I really don't, because y'all had a choice and y'all chose not to vote for Zimmerman. Was Zimmerman the most appealing candidate? No, he wasn't. But would you had somebody that will actually advocate for you for the things that you want? You know, lowering the cost of things? Absolutely. I would have chose him over even Tom Suozzi. And even Tom Suozzi had a better chance of beating George Santos. But Tom Suozzi, like I said, made stupid decisions. When you make stupid decisions, it comes back to you tenfold. He got a secondhand embarrassment over the governorship. Let's be real. He did not win in 2006. He got the same support that he had back in 2022 and 2006. Let's be real. Real recognize real. Thomas Swazi knew the whole state of New York didn't know your ass. You almost barely won your congressional race in 2020. But you had a better chance in 2022. But I digress. Overall, these Republicans knew who the fuck they were voting for. They knew who they were voting for, and they still voted for George Santos. So do I feel bad for them? Not quite. Do I want George Santos out? Absolutely. Eventually, he's going to have to resign because he's going to be embarrassed all the time. Like, all the time. But that's neither here or there. So, there's a special election. If he's out, it could possibly flip back blue, which those Long Islanders on the 3rd Congressional District will learn their goddamn lesson. And speaking of elections coming up, even though there's some elections in 2023, but this is the cycle of the presidential election in 2024. It's about to get mother effing real. You already got Republicans lined up trying to, outrun Trump. You have Nikki Haley who announced. Of course, that bum announced. And it's going to be more other people. I'm not surprised if Adam Kissinger or Liz Cheney jumps in. I'm not surprised even some senators even jump in, like, Tim Scott jump in. I'm not surprised any of these people will jump in because they're just thirsty. Or even George Well or any of those standard Republicans will jump in because that's how desperate they are. So I'm not surprised of the GOP disarray because there's fractions in it. There's those traditional conservatives, there's those moderates, and then there's the MAGA party, the extremists, right? So they have a fight on their own, while on the Democratic side is more united, despite the fringe knuckleheads on the left like Bernard Sanders and company, which their support has been shrinking. Their whole clique has been shrinking because they're realizing now that no one is interested in their fucking politics. I mean, it's complete bullshit. If you really want to get technical, how are you a progressive but you're siding with Republicans, far right Republicans, to force a vote? Are you that dumb? And then you're criticizing the 1619 Project. That's not very progressive, But I digress again. Nobody's fucking with those progressives. Nobody's not messing with them. Nobody's interested. They've been rejected. How many times? Nina Turner's been rejected. All of those knuckleheads. Jen Perlman have been rejected. Even Bernard Sanders of South Brooklyn, who now lives in Vermont, has been rejected twice for the presidency. And if he tried to run a third time, he's still not going to get it. It's going to be even more embarrassing because President Biden and Vice President Harris is popular amongst the party. Not the party establishment, but the goddamn voters. And speaking of the voters, those polls from, the mainstream media, I see it when I believe it because those voters you are talking to are probably independent-leaning Republicans. They're not necessarily Democrats. They're not Democrats. Because if they were Democrats would be in line with the president. Because the president is actually doing his job. We finally had infrastructure since this president's been in office. We actually had, relief in terms of a vaccine rollout. You had some extra money for parents, even though it expired, thanks to Joseph Manchin III, who wants to be working with Republicans on bipartisanship, which we all knew that shit was going to fail, and upholding the filibuster. Besides those issues, you had the Inflation Reduction Act being signed. Let's see. You have the student loan thing that, was an executive order, even though it's being battled in court, but, we know that way it might go through. It might be successful. We never know. There's a whole and also many judicial appointments. There's been a lot of things happening. Oh, also equity for Black and brown people. Also relief for HBCUs. So there's been things going. So if you want more information, you could go on the White House website and look at it. So to all of these polls from the mainstream media, those polls that's saying that the president is underwater, y'all need to stop talking to those Republicans on the landline. Y'all need to go out in the public. Y'all need to go to different communities that don't look like y'all, mostly that look like me, and ask, how is this administration is doing? That's a good start. Instead of going to those raggedy ass trailer park diners and asking people whether you could see, Donald Trump taking back the office again. Let me just say this to you. Donald Trump is not taking back the office again. Even if he wins his primary, he is so much under scrutiny with legal stuff, and then this January 6th insurrection, that will be his legacy. The insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th will be Donald John Trump's legacy. Why? Because he incited an insurrection since 1812, since the War of 1812 on the Capitol. An assault on the Capitol, which he almost had his vice president, okay? And put the life of the speaker, then Nancy Pelosi, in danger, and the rest of the people in Congress, including the staffers and the people that work there. And on top of that, he said to those rioters, those insurrectionists, I love you and I think you're special. That's a legacy, and that's not a good legacy to be followed through if you're trying to run for your old job again. So he doesn't have a shot. President Biden and Vice President Harris, and I meant Vice President Harris, they're going to win again. And they're going to do more big things. Democrats will expand their majority in the Senate and will take back the House. And that's a fact. So all of those polls, all of those knuckleheads on TV, y'all going to be proven wrong next year in November. And that's the truth. So this Biden and Trump matchup, which y'all project Trump is winning, that ain't happening. Not ever. And just to say these words, I'm going to say these words to all of those, not all, but majority, because people get mad when I say all, because it's not really all, but it's a great majority of white voters and some black voters too. I'm just going to tell y'all this. The president is not dropping the vice president. Not at all. She's running on his ticket. She was a critical part of the American Rescue Plan, of the infrastructure bill, many other things included. So he's not dropping her. He's keeping her. So all of you wanting Elizabeth Cheney on the ticket, or Elizabeth Warren on the ticket, or a Gavin Newsom on the ticket, I mean, y'all can all kick rocks on that one, because it's not happening. Gavin Newsom already said no. Elizabeth Warren is a hell no. And Elizabeth Cheney don't agree with this president on anything. So are you that dumb? And no, the vice president is not going to be an AG. That is a step below her position regardless. Even when she was a senator, it was a step below her, because the Senate oversees the Attorney General's job, that whole Justice Department function. This is why people need to read some damn books, according to Dr. C. Because clearly, y'all don't know shit. So to you majority of white voters on different spectrums of the Democratic Party, whether you are far leftist, whether you are centrist or a moderate, the majority of you, the president is not dropping the vice president. He's not dropping her for Gavin Newsom. He's not dropping her for Mitt Romney. He's not dropping her for Elizabeth Warren, and damn sure not dropping her for Elizabeth Cheney. So if you're mad, maybe you need to vote for Donald Trump or write in a candidate, which we don't want you to write in a candidate. We actually want you to support the president. But if you want to support the president, you should support the vice president too. And I'm talking about Madam Vice President Kamala Devi Harris, point blank in the period. So until then, folks, I have said my piece. You have a great night. Be well, be safe, take care of each other and stay out of trouble. Have a good night.